A Muslim man destroyed a Virgin Mary shrine with a sledgehammer in front of shocked witnesses, and everyone expected violence to follow. But what the Virgin Mary did next in his prison cell left doctors, religious leaders, and even the man himself unable to explain what happened. In the small town of Antipolo in Rizal, Philippines, there stood a shrine that had been there for almost 40 years. It wasn't big or fancy, just a simple concrete stand about 4 feet high, painted white, with a statue of the Virgin Mary that people in the neighborhood had taken care of since 1985. The shrine sat at the corner of Barangay San Roque, right where 3 streets came together, under the shade of an old acacia tree. Every evening, you could see candles burning at the bottom. On Sundays, after church, old women would stop to pray there on their way home. It was part of the neighborhood, as normal as the sound of the jeepneys driving by, or the smell of fried fish from the market nearby. It was a Tuesday morning in March 2019. The sun was already hot by 8 in the morning, the kind of heat that makes the road look wavy and sends people looking for shade. Mrs. Elena Reyes was sweeping the front of her small store across from the shrine when she heard shouting. Not the happy shouting of children playing or people buying things at the market. This was different. Angry. Loud. She looked up and saw a man she didn't know standing in front of the Virgin Mary shrine. He was young, maybe in his early 30s, wearing a white prayer cap and a dark vest over his white clothes. In his hands, he held a sledgehammer. "This is wrong!" he shouted in Tagalog, his voice carrying across the street. "This makes God angry!" Before anyone could move, before anyone could say a single word, he swung the sledgehammer. The sound was terrible. Metal hitting concrete, hitting painted stone. The statue's head broke off first, the calm face of the Virgin Mary falling to the ground. He swung again and again. The hands that reached out broke into pieces. The blue robe that had been painted fresh just a few months ago cracked and fell apart. Pieces of the statue flew across the sidewalk like broken dishes. Mrs. Reyes stood frozen, her broom forgotten in her hands. Other people started coming out of their homes and shops. A tricycle driver stopped in the middle of the street. A woman carrying bags of food dropped them on the ground. "Stop! What are you doing?" someone finally shouted. The man turned around, breathing hard, the sledgehammer still in his hands. His eyes were wild, burning with total belief that he was right. "I am doing what God wants," he yelled. "This is wrong. This makes God angry." By now, a crowd had formed, 20 people, then 30. The feeling in the air was thick and heavy. This was a neighborhood where most people were Catholic. That shrine had been there longer than some of the people watching had been alive. Candles still burned at its bottom even now, even as the Virgin Mary lay in broken pieces on the ground. Someone called the police. Someone else called the barangay captain. But in those minutes while they waited, something strange happened. Or really, something strange didn't happen. The crowd didn't attack. They didn't rush forward. They didn't try to grab the sledgehammer or throw rocks or scream for revenge. They stood there, shocked. Yes, hurt. Completely. But not violent. Not looking for revenge. The man himself seemed confused by this. He held his sledgehammer tighter, his jaw set hard, as if he expected them to attack and was ready to fight back. But they just watched him. Some were crying. Some were praying quietly, their lips moving in prayers they knew by heart. Some just stood there with faces full of deep sadness. What could possibly happen after such a violent act that would change everything? The video went everywhere within hours. Someone in the crowd had filmed the destruction on their phone. By evening, it had been shared thousands of times on Facebook. By the next morning, it was on the news all over the country. Muslim man destroys Virgin Mary shrine in Antipolo, the headline said. Some added, religious fighting grows in Rizal province. The comments exploded. People were angry, hurt, asking for punishment, asking for justice. Some used words that shouldn't be said. Some called for revenge. The incident was becoming exactly what everyone feared. Another spark that could start a fire of religious fighting that had caused so much pain in the Philippines before. Father Ricardo Salazar saw the news on Wednesday morning. He was the priest at Our Lady of Peace and Good Voyage Church, about 2 kilometers from the destroyed shrine. He was 58 years old, had worked in the community for 23 years, and had seen his share of fights and hard times. But this felt different. This felt dangerous. He came to the shrine on Wednesday afternoon. The broken pieces had been carefully picked up and put in a cardboard box. Someone had set up a table with candles and flowers. People were already treating it like a holy place. They knelt on the hot concrete, praying, some of them crying out loud. Father Salazar knelt too. Not to pray, not yet, but to look at the pieces. The statue had been made of painted plaster, not expensive, but cared for with love. He picked up a piece of the blue robe, turning it over in his hands. He felt anger trying to rise in his chest. It would be so easy to be angry, so easy to blame, so easy to turn this into us against them. But he thought about something else. He thought about words he had preached just 2 Sundays before. Love your enemies. Pray for those who hurt you. Easy words to say in church, much harder to live when faced with something like this. That evening, Father Salazar did something people didn't expect. He called Imam Abdullah Marquez, the leader of the Islamic Center of Rizal, about 5 kilometers away. They knew each other from meetings where religious leaders smiled politely and made general statements about peace. But they had never really talked, not deeply, not personally. Imam Abdullah, Father Salazar said when the call connected, "I think you've heard about what happened." There was a heavy breath on the other end. "Yes, Father. I am deeply sorry and deeply ashamed. This man does not speak for Islam. He does not speak for our community. I know that," Father Salazar said. "I'm calling because I think we need to do something together. I think we need to show people that this doesn't have to divide us more." Silence on the line. Then what do you have in mind? On Thursday, something that had never happened before took place. Father Salazar and Imam Abdullah held a meeting for reporters and cameras. They stood together in front of the destroyed shrine with both Muslim and Catholic community leaders behind them. Father Salazar spoke first. "What happened here hurt our community deeply. But we will not answer with violence. We will not answer with hate. We will answer with the values that both our faiths teach: mercy, understanding, and love." Imam Abdullah spoke next, his voice heavy with feeling. The man who did this acted alone and acted against the true teachings of Islam. The Quran teaches us to respect people of other faiths, to honor their places of worship. This man broke the clear commands of God. On behalf of the Muslim community of Rizal, I say I am sorry. Mrs. Reyes, who had picked up the broken face of the Virgin Mary, had kept it in her store. Every day people would come to see it, to touch it, to pray over it. It was on Friday evening, 4 days after the destruction, that something strange happened. A woman she didn't know walked in wearing a head covering, and she looked nervous, her hands held tight together. "Excuse me," the woman said in Tagalog, her voice quiet. "Is it true that you have the face of the statue?" But what decision could a priest possibly make that would bring healing to such a deep wound? On Sunday morning, Father Salazar stood before his church at Our Lady of Peace and Good Voyage. The church was packed, more people than usual, all of them wanting to hear what their priest would say about the destroyed shrine. Some had come hoping for anger, for a call to defend their faith. Others had come hoping for comfort, for words that everything would be okay. What they got was neither. "My brothers and sisters," Father Salazar began, his voice calm but reaching every corner of the stone church. This week, our community saw an act of violence. A shrine that had stood for nearly 40 years was destroyed. An image of Our Lady that brought comfort to many was broken. It would be easy, so easy, to answer with anger, to demand punishment, to see this as an attack by them against us. He stopped, looking out at all the faces. But I want to tell you something. The man who did this, Ahmad Malik Santos, he is not them. He is us. He is a Filipino, like you and me. He is a child of God, like you and me. He made a terrible choice, yes. He did an act of violence, yes. But he did it because he believed wrongly that he was defending his faith. How many times in history have people done violence while believing they were doing God's will? There was uncomfortable moving in the seats. This wasn't what people had expected to hear. I have been praying all week, Father Salazar continued. I have been asking our Virgin Mary, Our Lady of Peace, what we should do, and I believe she has given me an answer. But it will require something from all of us. It will require us to be bigger than our hurt, bigger than our anger. It will require us to truly live what Jesus taught us. He took a deep breath. I say that we rebuild the shrine, but I say that we do it together with the Muslim community. I say that we invite Imam Abdullah and his people to help us. I say that we make the new shrine not just a Catholic shrine, but a symbol of peace between our faiths. A place where both communities can come, where Muslims can pass by without feeling worried, where Catholics can pray without fear. The silence in the church was complete. You could hear people breathing. Someone coughed. A child made a sound before being quickly hushed. And more than that, Father Salazar said, his voice growing stronger, I say that we forgive Ahmad Malik Santos, that we write to the judge and ask for mercy, that we show him what Christ's love really means. The church exploded. Some people stood up and started clapping. Others stood up and started arguing. Voices rose, some for it, some against. He destroyed our shrine, someone shouted. He should be punished. Father Salazar raised his hands, waiting for quiet. It took several minutes. Yes, he destroyed our shrine. But look at what Jesus did on the cross. Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do. Ahmad believed he was doing right. He was wrong, terribly wrong, but he believed it. If we cannot forgive him, then what kind of Christians are we? It was Father Salazar who went to visit Ahmad in jail. Ahmad was brought to the visiting room in handcuffs. When he saw the priest's collar, his jaw got tight. You're the priest, Ahmad said in Tagalog. Have you come to say I'm going to hell? No, Father Salazar said simply. I've come to tell you that we're rebuilding the shrine and that your community is helping us. 3 weeks later, the new shrine was ready. But 2 days before the ceremony to bless it, something happened that no one had expected. What could happen in those final days that would shock both communities? On Thursday evening, 2 days before the ceremony, Father Salazar got a phone call from the prison. It was the boss there, and his voice sounded uncertain, almost confused. Father, you need to come here. It's about Ahmad Santos. Something's happened. Father Salazar drove to the prison, his heart beating fast. When he arrived, he was taken to an office, and there, sitting on a chair with his hands no longer tied, was Ahmad Malik Santos. But he looked different. His eyes were red from crying. His face was puffy. And when he saw Father Salazar, he stood up quickly and did something no one expected. He fell to his knees. Please, Ahmad said, his voice broken. Please, I need to speak to you. I need to speak to Mrs. Reyes. I need to speak to everyone. I need to tell them what happened. They moved to a private room. Ahmad sat across from Father Salazar, his hand shaking. I need to tell you something, and you're going to think I'm crazy. Maybe I am crazy. Maybe it was just a dream. But it felt real. It felt more real than anything I've ever felt. Tell me, Father Salazar said gently. Ahmad took a shaking breath. Last night, I couldn't sleep. Around 3 in the morning, I was lying on my bed, staring at the ceiling, and suddenly, the cell was filled with light. Not the harsh, bright light, but soft, gentle light, like moonlight, but brighter. And there was a woman standing there. Father Salazar felt chills run down his back. A woman. She was wearing blue, Ahmad continued, his voice filled with wonder and fear. A blue robe, just like the statue I destroyed. But she wasn't a statue. She was real. She was more real than you are right now. And she looked at me with such sadness, Father. Such deep sadness. But not anger. No anger at all. What did she say? Father Salazar asked, barely breathing. She said, My son, you have hurt so many people in my name. She showed me things, Father. She showed me Mrs. Reyes praying at the shrine after her husband died, praying for strength to keep going. She showed me people who came to that simple shrine, not to worship a piece of stone, but to find a moment of peace, a moment of connection with God. She showed me my own mother, who's been crying every day since I did this, my sister Aisha, who's been so ashamed. She showed me you, Father, visiting me in prison, asking for mercy for me. For me, the man who destroyed something you loved. What else did she say? Father Salazar asked. She said, I forgive you, as I forgive all my children. But you must also forgive yourself, and you must ask forgiveness from those you hurt. You must spend the rest of your life building bridges, not destroying them. And then she touched my forehead. Ahmad said, reaching up to touch the spot, right here. And I felt such peace, Father. All the anger, all the hate, all the certainty that I was right and everyone else was wrong, it just melted away. And I understood. I finally understood what I had done. On Saturday morning, Barangay San Roque was filled with people. Hundreds had come. Muslims and Catholics standing together. The new shrine stood shining in the morning sun. And then, to the shock of many in the crowd, a prison van pulled up. Guards got out, and from the back came Ahmad Malik Santos. Ahmad was led to the microphone. 1 month ago, I stood where this beautiful shrine now stands, and I destroyed something that brought comfort and peace to many people. I did it believing I was serving God. I was wrong. I was terribly, horribly wrong. Mrs. Reyes was the first to move. She walked forward slowly. She stopped in front of Ahmad, looked up at his tear-covered face, and then she opened her arms and hugged him. I forgive you, she said clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. The crowd erupted. Some people cheered, others cried. Some stood frozen, witnessing something they never thought they would see. The woman who had lost her husband and prayed at that shrine for strength, embracing the man who destroyed it. Ahmad sobbed in her arms, his whole body shaking with the weight of guilt and the overwhelming grace of forgiveness he did not deserve but was freely given. Father Salazar and Imam Abdullah stood together and approached the new shrine. It was different from the old one, taller, built with stronger materials, designed to last another 40 years or more. But what made it truly different was the plaque at its base. In 3 languages, Tagalog, English, and Arabic, it read, Our Lady of Peace and Unity. Built together by Christians and Muslims of Rizal Province. March 2019, where hatred once stood, love now grows. Father Salazar raised his hand to bless the shrine. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, we bless this shrine. May it be a place of peace for all who come here. May it remind us that mercy is stronger than judgment, that love is more powerful than hate, and that even the deepest wounds can heal when we choose forgiveness over revenge. Imam Abdullah spoke next, his voice carrying across the crowd. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate, we dedicate this place. May it stand as proof that people of different faiths can build together instead of tearing apart. May it teach our children that what unites us is greater than what divides us. The ceremony continued with prayers, songs, and speeches. But the most powerful moment came near the end. Ahmad, still flanked by guards but allowed to participate, knelt before the new shrine. He placed his hands on the concrete base, the same way he had gripped the sledgehammer a month before. But this time, his hands were gentle, reverent. "Blessed Mother Mary," he said quietly, though everyone could hear in the silence that had fallen. "I destroyed your image in anger and ignorance. You came to me in mercy and showed me the truth. I promised to spend the rest of my life making this right, not just by asking forgiveness, but by working to build bridges between our communities. By showing young men like me that hate leads only to more hate, but mercy leads to healing." In the months that followed, Ahmad's story spread across the Philippines and beyond. After his trial, where dozens of people from Barangay San Roque testified on his behalf, the judge gave him a suspended sentence with community service, 500 hours to be served at the very shrine he had destroyed, helping to maintain it, speaking to visitors about what he had learned, and working with both Father Salazar and Imam Abdullah to create programs that brought young people from different faiths together. Mrs. Reyes hired Ahmad to work in her store 3 days a week. At first, some customers refused to come in while he was there. But slowly, as they saw his genuine transformation, as they heard him tell his story with tears and humility, hearts began to change. Within 6 months, Ahmad had become a regular fixture in the neighborhood, known not as the man who destroyed the shrine, but as the man who was transformed by mercy. His sister Aisha, who had been so ashamed, became one of his strongest supporters. She started a youth group at the Islamic Center that focused on interfaith understanding, bringing Muslim and Catholic teenagers together for community service projects and discussions about faith, tolerance, and peace. 2 years later, in March 2021, something remarkable happened. The local government officially designated the shrine as a heritage site, not for its age or architecture, but for what it represented. The plaque was updated. Site of Destruction and Reconciliation. Here on March 12, 2019, hatred tried to divide a community. Here mercy brought it back together. Here the Virgin Mary showed that miracles still happen, not just in the physical healing of bodies, but in the impossible healing of hearts. Ahmad still visits the shrine every morning before the sun comes up. He lights a candle, says a prayer in his own Muslim tradition for peace and understanding, and then spends a few moments looking at the statue. Sometimes tourists or pilgrims are there, having heard the story. They ask him questions. He tells them the truth, that he was wrong, that he hurt people, that he deserved punishment, but that he received mercy instead, and that mercy changed everything. Father Salazar, now in his early 60s, often joins him there in those early morning hours. They have become true friends. These two men from different faiths, who were brought together by an act of violence and stayed together through the work of reconciliation. They sit on the bench that was placed near the shrine, donated by the barangay, and they talk about theology, about community problems, about their hopes for the future. One morning, as the sun rose over Antipolo, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Father Salazar asked Ahmad a question that had been on his mind for a long time. "Do you still see her? The Virgin Mary? Does she still visit you?" Ahmad was quiet for a moment, watching the morning light touch the statue's face. "Not the way she did that night in the prison," he said finally. "But sometimes, in quiet moments like this, I feel her presence. Not dramatic, not with light and visions. Just a sense of peace, of being watched over by someone who loves me despite everything I did." He paused. "Is that strange for a Muslim to say?" Father Salazar smiled. "I think the God we both serve works, in mysterious ways. And I think the Mother of Jesus, who Muslims also honor as a holy woman, has a special care for those who need mercy most. You needed it desperately that night, and she gave it to you." They sat in comfortable silence as the neighborhood woke up around them. A jeepney drove by, music playing from its speakers. A woman walked past on her way to the market, stopping briefly to cross herself and touch the shrine. Two children ran down the street, laughing, one wearing a hijab, the other a school uniform from the Catholic school. This is what she wanted, Ahmad said softly. This. People living together in peace, children playing together without fear. A shrine that welcomes everyone instead of dividing them. Father Salazar nodded. You destroyed a statue, Ahmad. But in doing so, and in accepting the mercy that followed, you helped build something much greater. You helped build understanding. You helped build peace. And that will last far longer than any statue ever could. Today, the shrine at Barangay San Roque in Antipolo stands as a testament to an impossible truth, that even the deepest hatred can be transformed by mercy, that even the most violent act can become the beginning of healing, and that miracles still happen not always in the ways we expect, but in the quiet work of forgiveness, in the hard choice to love instead of hate, in the courage to believe that people can change. And every night, as candles burn at the base of the shrine, as both Catholics and Muslims stop to pray or simply to remember, the statue of the Virgin Mary looks down with that same expression of peace and understanding. Her hands are outstretched in welcome, just as they were before. But now, those hands seem to hold something more. A promise that no one is beyond redemption, that no wound is too deep to heal. That mercy, when given freely and accepted humbly, can transform not just individuals, but entire communities. And somewhere in heaven, or wherever the blessed reside, perhaps the real Virgin Mary smiles, knowing that her visit to a prison cell at 3 a.m. accomplished exactly what she intended. Not just the salvation of one angry young man, but the transformation of an entire community, and a living example to the world that love will always, always triumph over hate.